Welcome back to another talk through, which is where I talk through the details of a build in an unscripted but more casual way, but with minimal edits. And hopefully by the end of this talk through, in combination with the blueprint code for the structure, you'll be able to create something that is similar to this, but uniquely your own. The blueprint code for the structure can be found on my blueprint library, which is totally free on my Patreon, where anyone can yoink the code and make a build that is similar and customize it for themselves and do whatever they want with it. So like I mentioned, this is unscripted and I'm a very forgetful person. So if there's something that I go through and I don't go through in enough detail, feel free to leave a comment and I will do my best to respond, get back to you, and help you out with whatever questions you may have. But with that being said, let's get started on the talk through for the cozy foyer. So to start, the foyer is a 2-story empty stairwell room. And I have mine connected directly to the entryway. So 2 stories connected to the entryway. And my goal for this is that I wanted to give it a wow factor, no pun intended, whenever somebody loaded into my home. So right when they walk in, it's like, boom, pretty foyer. And so given my username, I wanted to go with planty vibes and still in like a homey, grand way. And what I did was I looked for inspiration of how people did their entrances. And what I found is one thing was from Neek on Reddit, his Borealis home, which I'll put in the description too. He used the tables for the staircases, and I thought that was a really good way to give it like a little grand wow factor. And then Masona on the Architects of Azeroth Discord, before it got wiped, there was a really pretty like structure that she had done that inspired like this form of like a little bit of a vaulted ceiling. So that's what helped me kind of create the basis of this, and in combination with some of the other techniques that I use throughout my house, I was like, let me try something that's more cool toned but still with lots of warm undertones to them, and grand but planty, because we're limited on the colors of plants that we have. So I tried my best to combine all of these things to make something that was really, really pretty, but still like me. So the biggest question that I get, which is what Neek inspired, was how do I get the staircase runner? And so like I mentioned, this is also made up of several tables. So these are large covered wooden tables. And the way that I did the stairs was every single time one of these tables, like the little curved portion right here, once that started going is where I would clip it into the one in front of it. So that way it looked like all of the gold was going all the way down the staircase. And then as for how deep I did it, is right where the stitch was. I gave it just a smidge more of room and I eyeballed that all the way up the staircase to try and get that same vibe. And then you just move it kind of past there, and once you do that, it'll stack up. And that will be included in the blueprint, so you don't have to worry about stacking all of this up on your own. But the dyes that I used in this build in particular were mesquite brown, that's how you say it, for the table and then also for the metal. And then for the green, I use Grizzly Hill greens. I use that like all the time, so it's very common that if you see a dark green in my build, it is Grizzly Hill green mixed with mesquite brown and bronze. Because I just think they look really, really good together. So, and then I have that going down to a Stormwind Hall rug, so that way it looks like the stair runner like completes itself on the front. And then when you go up there, there's also some more tables just to continue that runner look to it, and then it goes up with the beams as stairs. I've seen Neeks who also continued his stairs upward with the large covered wooden tables, but at the time of this build, it was like 5 points for one of these tables, and I could not afford that decor budget-wise, and these were 3 points at the time. Now they're 1 point, so a little bit more budget-friendly. Not the most budget-friendly of builds, but I think it looks pretty good. But looking up at the main look of the focal point of this build is a flower that is made up of a bunch of ornate ochre, I don't know how to say it, but those windows, which are from More Within. And I think these ones are from the auction house or crafting. There's another one that is a cinder brew window or something like that, which is very similar, but it doesn't have the ornate like look to it. So in the case that you have resonance crystals, you might be able to get that one instead of this one. And then right in the middle is the Drained Dark Heart of Galakrond, which you get from the War Within meta achievement. And you can buy extras as well from, I think, the Undermine vendor. But what I did was what I started with was placing this directly in the center, and then I made an X or T shape, and then I just put these at 45-degree angles all along it, and I made this really pretty flower. And so I've done this for a couple of my builds now, so you might already know this, but there's a lot of ivy that we do have, like the creeping ivy and also the creeping lattice ivy. But the unfortunate part is these are very cool toned, and I didn't want to have cool tones all over the place because this is warm light up here, and then all of this is cool tone down here, and I wanted to make it feel a little bit more warm. So what I do in that case is I use the Stormwind trellis and basin, and I flip that around and I shove that in walls. So there's several occasions where I have that here. You can clip it into the wall. You'll have to do it, I think, at like 122-ish to 124 in order for it to clip in and not show, but then also still be valid, I think. Or maybe they fixed that. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, so like 122, 124, otherwise it'll snap back when you leave. So you'll just do that at different angles, and you can make it look like there's ivy coming off the wall. But now we have this like dyeable ivy, so you might be able to use that instead if you wanted a more like lush look to it, which I love this stuff that they added in 12.1, which is pretty cool. But I haven't used it yet, so... but in the meantime, when like this first came out, I used the Stormwind trellis and basin for so many things. And so, keeping that warm look, what I ended up doing was I put an overgrown Arathi trellis here. I love this thing so much. It's great for structures and just like entryways and all that fun stuff. So, smack that there. And then on the back of this, I have a Cenarian rectangular rug, which you get from Legion, clipped with a banner, the Dalaran banner, or Kirin Tor Skyline banner. So if you clip that into something, it gets that like really pretty sparkle effect. It's very subtle, but it's pretty. And so I also wanted some lighting here, but I wanted to maintain kind of like the warm green teal effect. So I have the Copper Tide Sage sconce from BFA sitting on the ledges right there. And even though they are tentacles, you can't really tell. It just kind of fits. So that is like the focal point of this. And then I have some drapes up there, some Tide curtains, durable folk curtains, and these are all dyed those same colors that are continued over here as well. Let's see. So for the structure itself, what I have here is I have the beams going up, we have some fences, and this is wide enough for your character to like walk. You can place some stuff along here, put some stuff in the corners, and this I don't think is included in the blueprint right up here, but it has the ability for you to put entrances and exits all over the place. So you can have a hallway going down here, a hallway going down here. You can have a hallway going on the back side behind the staircase, which I'll show you in a second. And then also stairway on top or a hallway on top. Oops, actually, second floor, you can't because that's where the focal point is. And then on the side here, and then also up here. So there's so many entryways that you can add on to this Grand Foyer, which makes it super flexible as your very first room. And I would recommend doing the standard doorway just to make it feel a little bit more enclosed. And then also because the stairway, if you see here, unless you do custom like walls and stuff like that, it might mess with the illusion of the staircase. So I would recommend just keeping it closed off there for at least the upstairs. And then also something you can do here is this is what I did in my main build, is on that second floor behind here. Rather than having it flush, I had a closet room and then I had my room. So that way, it was more of like a nice little entryway into a fancier area, and it doesn't feel as squished. So maybe you can do something like that, but totally up to you. And then same thing on the lower ground area is you can do it either way of having it closed off, or you can have it wide. What I did was I would put some trellises here. That way it's still like blocked off to the eye, but it still has some ornateness to it. And what you could also do is just do that. If you wanted to add some paintings or some more greenery, stuff like that, then totally up to you. And like I mentioned, underneath the stairs, you also have room for a hallway. So I purposefully wanted to add a way to get to the back of this. So I would recommend using the standard here. It's still tall enough for you to do that, and then you can put like a secret bookcase right here, or you could just place a door. Totally up to you, but you can walk all the way around the staircase in this build. So what I also have here is I have a couple little bits of clutter. I didn't actually finish this build because I needed to yoink a couple decor points to fit into other areas of the build, and this wasn't like my big thing. So I have a couple cushions here and there, the Suramar ones, the Charming Seat cushion, some books and lights, and just random clutter. I'll get to the front portion in a second. And then what I have here is I have the carved wooden bar table just as another surface clipped in with an iron reinforced cover on top of it to hide the metal, but as like a little bookcase. And then in the corners, I have the smoke lamp case because it adds a nice warm glow in the back. Like if you take a look at the difference between the left side and the right side, it just adds like a nice glow back there. So that way it still feels very like, it's not just the focal point up here, but you still have a couple places where your eyes can go and it still feel warm and busy in a good way. And I have the Dreamweaver banner back here because it still has like the undertones of the pinks and the purples here along with the greens. So I thought it fit pretty well. Same thing on this side. I just kept it symmetrical because at the time of building this, which was my first couple of weeks doing housing, I thought everything had to be symmetrical, otherwise it wasn't pretty. And I was very mistaken because a lot of my stuff now is not symmetrical. So do whatever it is your heart desires here. That's just what I ended up doing with lots of books and clutter and stuff like that. And once again, over here with some rolled cushions and Lucky Traveler's bench. And then up here, what I did was I wanted to look like it had hanging baskets because it felt kind of bland underneath here. So I added the Westfall woven basket, which you can get from Westfall questing. And then the hostas, I clipped that into the basket. It doesn't look the best from this angle, but nobody's going to be staring too much at your baskets. And then I pushed the sunset flowers into it. So that way I added more of like the pinks and the purples too. And then it gets a little bit dark. So what I recommend is clipping in some of those City Watchers candle holders, which you all know that I love, of just adding that little bit of glow. Because if you take a look at the difference between, let's say, that side and then this side, that little bit of extra lighting just adds a little bit more warmth to the space versus just having it feel a little bit like sad and gloomy over there. So I like hiding random bits of light everywhere to give it a little bit more warmth to places. But what I have here is also the sturdy fireplace, speaking of light. So this is a sturdy fireplace clipped downward. And then a rugged brazier on top. Technically, these are from War Within, but I think now with 12.1, we have some braziers that are from Neighborhood Vendor. So a lot of this is going to be Neighborhood Vendor decor items. So you don't need too much fancy stuff for the structure. Actually, now that I think about it, is this? Oh, no. Okay, this is Gilnean. But like most of this is going to be Neighborhood Vendor items. I think it's just the rugged brazier and then the waning wood fence are the only items in the blueprint that will not be Neighborhood Vendor decor items. So, yippee. As for the front portion, I wanted to bring in some greenery that had just like a little bit of, not just like for show up here. So what I did was I put in some Ajarn fire spear trees and some boxwood bushes here, and then I put a rug underneath. So a circular woolen rug, just to make it look like this was a green, like, not conservatory, but just a little space for some greenery. And once again, I clipped in more lighting so that way it wasn't as bland, because if I take that away, for example, you have this over there, which isn't as glowy. And then if you take a look over here, it's a much more bright. So I wanted to have that underglow in it to make it look, once again, more warm. As you can tell, I really like the City Watchers candles. So big tip is if you want to highlight something or make something visible, shove a candle in it. On this side, I did the same thing. And then I also wanted to make it look like there was a little seating area. So somebody with some wine and a book, which I would love to spend my time with wine and a book with some greenery. So that is the build. Ignore this random Mechagon miniature sun that I placed for video purposes. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Up here, oh, other thing is the ceiling is also custom too. So the Stormwind large platforms make up the ceiling itself. So that way it vaults a little bit more upwards, but not too crazy. And then I have some beams over here, and then this is the center of it right here. So you'll just angle those forward. I think it's like, oh, it is, wait. It's like 330 for all of these on that side. And then for these ones, it's 330 as well, I guess. Okay. So you'll just angle those upwards if you wanted to recreate something like this, or if the blueprint isn't working. And then here I have the dark iron chandelier, which, you know, it works, but it's not the, I think I could do something different with that, but I have that there. And then we have some Goldshire windows up top, to give it a little bit more of like a skylight look to it. I think with some of the techniques we have now, you could probably do something different, but it's just a good basis for something simple and giving it the illusion that it's a skylight. So once again, this was built like within the first couple of weeks of housing, so we've had a lot more decor since then. You could probably do some really crazy stuff with it, and structurally, you could probably do something other than having these, like, what is it? The way that it clips a little bit. We have those dyeable platforms now, so I would say if you were going to change something about this, I would say give it a shot to replace the platforms that we have up here with those new platforms and see how it changes the vibe to fit your space too. And you can dye all of this and get a feel for how it looks. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and happy building.